want to shift gears now and talk about why concepts matter, concepts like the Future Combat System. Well, one of the terms of art that you'll see in F-100 is the idea of key performance parameters, very important part of the initial phase of concept development and capabilities definition. Simple example. In the first iteration of Future Combat System, there was a key performance parameter specified that whatever platform was finally chosen had to conform to a 24-ton and C-130 transportable constraint. It's fair to ask why. And the reason to ask why is when you do the math, physics tells you that you cannot have an offensively capable system that also carries enough armor to protect you against direct fire and make it fit inside a C-130 and under 24 tons. You can't have all of that. So one of the things that you have to make a trade-off between is lightening it up, and you offset that less amount of armor with an increased amount of information, and the theory is that an improved common operating picture keeps you out of the positions where the enemy can hit you with direct fire, and so you're making a trade-off between armor and information that allows you to have survivability through information rather than armor, and it allows you to meet the performance parameters of 24 tons and C-130 transportable. It's fair to ask, though, why is this a trade-off that we have to make? Why is C-130? Why 24 tons? Can it be that we need those C-130 constraints for strategic deployments? I mean, our operational concept says that we're a force projection army, and we have to be able to reduce the amount of time to get from the CONUS base into the joint operational area. But if you think about that, you say, do we really use C-130s to make strategic movements? Am I really going to load FCSs into C-130s and CONUS and fly them to a JOA? I don't think so. It's a C-130s an intra-theater transport. Well, what about that constraint at the operational and tactical level? Do I need a C-130 capability to move future combat systems intra-theater to achieve success? Well, what does that look like? Consider the idea that I've got an enemy battalion over here, and what I need to do is move an FCS battalion an operationally significant distance into a position of advantage. Well, I can already drive 300 kilometers in a 24-hour period with combat power and all the sustainment that I need to achieve that position of advantage. How many times do I think I'm going to be in a position where that ground movement is not going to be possible, and that what I really need is the capability to fly that battalion into that position? If you think that that is a situation you're going to experience a lot, then you can argue that you need to have those key performance parameters inside the system definition at the start of research and development. But here's what happens, as we know in retrospect, just taking a look at OIF, that most of the time that we have spent in the red zone here in nation building and stability and reconstruction operations, and the nature of the threat there is that it's very hard to use strategic intelligence to identify concentrations of conventional force that represent threats to our conventional force. And now suddenly our information collection and dissemination system isn't protecting us against the things that are blowing up our softer skinned vehicles throughout the length of this phase of the campaign. In fact, the only place that you can really rely on the common operating picture and conventional and technical intelligence are in those high intensity portions of the campaign when the enemy's using conventional direct fire units against us. And so the trade-off that you can legitimately support in conventional operations between information and armor makes sense in between these two lines in the decisive phase. But as you start thinking about what's now phases 4, 5, and 6, the nature of the threat has changed. I'm not sure that you can really justify making the trade-off between information and armor. And in fact, all the programs to upgrade Humvee armor, to buy mine-resistant vehicles, all of those things are a response to the failure of conventional intelligence and intelligence sharing, information sharing, to respond in time against an unconventional threat and protect the force. I say all that simply to say that the initial definitions of capabilities that you make in the R&D phase have important consequences for the kinds of vehicles and platforms that you can field later on, and you have to consider the entire range of full spectrum operations when you're trying to define those capabilities. And in a capabilities-based acquisition system, getting those initial capabilities defined correctly and identifying the trade-offs that you can afford to make become a crucial component of success.